Welcome back to Brevity Box. It's episode 3. We are recording this on the 1st of November, 2020, year of hell and damnation, from the way it feels a lot of times, I think. Um, we're a couple of days away from the election, and I think it's worthy to say that, whatever happens, I hope that we can all remember that the loudest voices are the extremes, and that there's a lot of people that are more alike than maybe it's easy to see right now. Whatever happens, I hope that we can kind of hopefully get past the tension. I know everybody's easy to kind of think, um, you get inundated with how much struggle's going on in the year, and I think it's a lot about weathering that storm and getting through it. And I just hope everybody can remember that in the end, we're still a community, and that we can hopefully have people that maybe we don't agree with on everything that are still close to us. For me, that's family. I have a lot of family that are around me, and I live in the South, so I think it goes without saying that I don't agree with everybody, but they're still family. And I'm totally going to go straight up for the easy metaphor here. Uh, just a couple of days ago, at the end of October, we survived a direct hit from a hurricane here in New Orleans. That was an eye-opening experience for me since I moved here a few years ago. I hadn't been through anything like that, but I could describe all the craziness. I'm sure you could look up videos and trees being uprooted and stuff, but the things that stood out to me were that right there in the eye of the storm, when we knew we could hear, transformers and power going out, and we could hear things going on because the wind was strong. When there was a moment of calm, and I walked out the door just intuitively to go check and look around the neighborhood, how many of my neighbors came out and were just there checking out, making sure everybody was good, making sure seeing they were just seeing where they could help. And a couple doors down, we had a tree that was uprooted and laying on a house, and we kind of all started going that direction. And telling you that the feeling of community that came from there, it just gave me a little bit of hope, because the last thing anybody was talking about was fucking politics. So it made me feel good. And then in the aftermath, easy, again, low hanging fruit here, but I think it's symbolic. It's a beautiful last couple of days. We got through the storm. There's a lot of debris. People had to deal with some power outages, but we're all getting back to it, cleaning up, cleaning our own yard, etc. And again, it's a really nice day today. So I think it's important to remember that there's a reason we're going to get through 2020. We're going to get through the pandy. We're going to get through that storm. And I kind of thought it was a good place to start with everything on this episode 3. We got a lot of stuff to go through and move on. And Brando, I know that I've kept you off this thing for 3 minutes now, but you know, I had to start with a little bit of soothing calm and whatnot. Um, I know you're dealing with some stuff yourself, man. What you got to say? How you doing, man?
Well, after hearing how horrible I sounded on the last few podcasts, just in terms of audio fidelity, I've decided to go ahead and upgrade some of my equipment for the sake of our listening audience. And so we're going to try that out with a new concept called Welcome to the Brevity Box ASMR Hour featuring Brandon and Triple C. I'm just kidding. We're not actually going to do that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm
No,
I'm,
I
I'm
like
hoping that
it.
this definitely does sound a lot better for you guys. And yeah, I mean
It does.
it is weird times, and we got to do what we got to do to look on the bright side of life. As for those of you who know, as you know, Dogface 420 says, we got to be steady vibing to get through this.
Take your Ubers. Well, I know that we see things where we live. It's just different, right? I do see more representation in that community, and I think that comes from having to get through things like hurricanes, as weird as that sounds. I think everybody sort of intuitively falls into line to be helpful with one another for the most part. And in Arizona, there's really not that pressure to the community to have to do that. Like when it's a hot summer day, everybody's not coming outside to make sure we're all comfortable and that our ACs are working, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that keeps me in southern Arizona and probably will for the foreseeable future is the fact that we don't have any sort of natural disasters here. the worst we get is like a dust storm, a cloud burst during monsoon season, or a 115-degree day in summer. Compared to what a lot of the other parts of the country deal with, that's like Babytown frolics in comparison. That's nothing. Who cares? That and access to really good Mexican food, and that kind of keeps me here as well.
Oh man, I miss the food. Yeah, I give you that. Do you think like I've said this a few times to other people, and I've probably said it on a couple of different podcasts where I was lucky enough to be a guest on, but I do feel like the fact that this area goes through that routine state of emergency and you know catastrophic type weather, it seems to me it feels like I get more of that community representation that I was talking about earlier. Like I see more of that because of where the weather and whatnot, right? And so in Arizona, like you don't have that, and that doesn't isn't something you see as readily, right? There's no big struggle for the community to have to sort of come out and be a part of.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. Nothing
Fair?
really happens here that forces us to come together as a community to support each other.
Not like you know what I'm saying, not like weather driven. Like it's not
Exactly,
like
yeah.
that. It's no. Yeah, I feel like that has a lot to do with like I mean certainly I think everywhere you go you have people who aren't wearing masks for whatever reasons they say, but specifically here I was surprised. I would not have thought it was but everybody just sort of doesn't question it. That's the big thing. They're just sort of like, okay, and they nobody's happy about it, right? Nobody's celebrating it and talking about it, but they all have fun with it. They all know they kind of just have to do it. They get it. And I think they get it because of those other experiences. They know that when the weather is crazy and you have that kind of thing happening, that you need to kind of take care of each other because the emergency services are overwhelmed, right? Or because the hospitals just aren't even able to get to in a lot of cases. So they're out there supporting one another. I think when you don't have that wired in as a must be, you have to have those things in order to really live here. I think that, like you say, like I would suspect. I haven't been in Arizona during this whole thing, but I would suspect you see more like representation of people just not getting it. Like they don't want to do it. They don't get it. They live in the sun. They feel safer.
Yeah.
I mean, is that's kind of what
To
you're
a
saying?
point, I think the sun's rotted a lot of people's brains, partially mine, possibly included. I've lived here my entire life. But it's unfortunate how many,
Yeah,
like, people I see wearing chin diapers opposed to masks wandering around. And I got to stop calling people out on that
yeah.
before I get my ass kicked. Yeah.
Pretty funny though. Great episode of South Park for anyone who hasn't really checked it out yet. They had a special a few weeks ago that was really covering the pandemic in a really satirical and humorous way. And anybody who was not wearing a mask over their nose and that was just under their mouth and just on their chin, they started referring to it as chin diapers. And man, did it stick.
And the two things about that episode really stood out to me is just the fact that I forget which two parents it was, but one of them was pro mask, one of them was anti mask, and then for no reason later on in the episode they switched positions on it. And I hate to admit this, but do you know what part made me laugh the hardest but feel horrible at the same time? When
What's
Token
that?
got shot. Like, just, I mean, again, I feel
Yeah.
horrible.
No,
I
you're
feel horrible
right.
saying that, but like Charlie,
You got to describe the
but
context
like,
of that though. You got to go forward and tell them.
I mean, this episode doesn't just kind of cover the pandemic. It really sums up 2020 as a whole, basically everything. So,
Yeah,
as basically
everything you're struggling through.
at this part of the episode, they'd forced the kids into school to be quarantined because someone popped hot for coronavirus, I believe. And it was, around the same time when the mayor pretty much fired all the cops. And I forget exactly why the teachers weren't working, but let's just have the cops go teach class. Now in the classroom,
Well, the teachers were didn't believe in working because of the pandemic, and I think they gave all the like the teacher jobs to the cops, right? And there's like
yeah,
four cops
that,
in the classroom when they all got in there.
that's what it was. So of course all these kids are at their desks surrounded by plexiglass. They all have their masks on. I think Kyle and Cartman start arguing about something, They wind up getting into a
Cartman started
fist.
sneezing on him or something.
That's right. That's what it was. Cartman started sneezing or coughing on Kyle. They get into a fight, and then the cop in the room tries to break it up, pulls his gun and shoots Token, who's not involved, far away from the actual fight.
And says, "Got him!"
Yep. And I laughed my ass off, but I felt horrible about it afterwards. Yeah.
Well, so maybe that's an interesting thing. Let's. But look, I mean, don't you think that that's a lot of times what people? I am no comedian. I'm a fan of comedy, and I think that's the genius of comedy. I mean, laughter is honest, and I think that what we described out of context. If you haven't seen it, if you don't understand the year and everything that's been going on, it's the fact that it makes you think. It's so well done. It invokes the laughter, and the laughter is more of a omission that that's why that's true. Like, that's funny for a tragic reason. It's only funny in the context of South Park. And then the afterthought of having to sort of, you have empathy, right? It gives you this trap door into realizing that in situations like Breonna Taylor, they can cause a real awareness that I often think people avoid. I think the same kind of comedic value is true in a recent SNL bit where they took 5-hour energy and turned it into 5-hour empathy. And of course, you've got the whole joke of it is that even given the opportunity to have clarity on these issues from another person's perspective, the person who's supposed to drink the 5-hour empathy is reluctant to, doesn't want to, and avoids it at all costs. And I think that is a funny statement. It cracked me up on SNL, called 5-Hour Empathy. If you want to look it up on YouTube, it makes you laugh because you know that that's somebody or somebody you're related to that's like that.
It reminds me of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie that a lot of us know deviated a lot from the book.
I love that movie.
But one thing I thought was really good was the plot device that was the point of view gun. We could really use a couple of those in the world these days.
Yeah, I think so. And I honestly think it's closer to that. I had brought up the Frank Lutz panel a while ago, and without getting into the minutia of everything that was said, the one sentiment I got from people who are undecided, both that did vote for the current president in 2016 and those who didn't, was that they just wanted more of what I wanted from the world around them. They wanted more humility, more humanity, more ownership and responsibility. And it honestly made me feel hopeful. It made me feel okay about everything. What music are you listening to get you by, man? Like, what songs are carrying you through lately? You getting into angry rock, jazz, something funky, something soothing? What do you go to?
It's honestly a little bit of all of that. I mean, I think you and I talked about this on the phone a while ago, but speech impediment. Woo. I wound up going down the postmodern jukebox rabbit hole on YouTube.
Oh, I like them.
And then I discovered a vocalist named Morgan James, and it's, in my opinion, criminal. She isn't more famous than she actually is.
Morgan James. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
I've never heard of her.
Throw into YouTube Morgan James Maps, because Postmodern Jukebox, with her singing, takes the song Maps by Maroon 5, awful song, and rearranges it into a really, really killer 1970s style soul song. And it's really, really good. She is one of the few people to actually speak to Prince directly and get his blessing to cover one of his songs. So she does a pretty good cover of Call My Name. Highly recommend. And during the pandemic, her and her husband they live in Harlem, so they ain't going anywhere. Lots of the
oh yeah, because New York locked down.
Lots of the Rona in New York. So what they were doing on YouTube a lot is just Quarantunes, as they called it. And she actually put out a pair of albums digitally called Quarantunes. It was just her and her husband playing the guitar and singing along to some covers. The woman's got an amazing voice. I've been listening to that a lot, and then I've just been leaning into what I consider my happy music, which is basically the more brass, the better. You know, some James Brown, some old
Right.
funk, Earth, Wind, and Fire,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Just stuff that makes you feel good.
That stuff always picks me up. Ohio players. I'm a big Ohio players
And
sucker.
it's not quite funk,
Give me
but
the name of
you
her.
gotta love Jamiroquai too. Good for the soul.
I love Jim. Oh,
It's my favorite.
You can
It's
call
like,
that. That is
so
definitely
talented.
funk, man.
Well, it's not traditional
Yeah,
old school.
there's his whole
funk,
catalog.
yeah, but
No, well, come on, he's 30 years late. 25 maybe. What was the name of the musician you said earlier?
Morgan James.
Morgan James. And you said to look up what?
Maps. MAPS.
Maps. Morgan James Maps. I'm into it, man. That's gonna be good.
I
Thank you.
listened the first.
Yeah.
But I apologize.
Go ahead.
No, the
No,
first
go
time
ahead.
I heard it, I listened to it about a dozen times in a row because it was just so damn good. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I have guilty pleasures like that all the time. What's been getting me by, if let's see if we can hear your eye roll once I say this, because I can feel it coming. So I have been really hooked to everything Pamplemousse, and
What the hell
if you
is
don't know
that?
who Pamplemousse is, look, they are both talented musicians, and weirdly enough, they're a couple from as far as I can tell. They seem like a married couple, and he is the CEO of Patreon, and she is a very talented vocalist who is just alluring in all ways, and they do a lot of covers and mashups, and there is a quality to the voice and how they do things with their mashups that I can't really get enough of. And then, they have their own singles, their own originals that are also extremely good and enjoyable. And then they recently, for seemingly no reason at all, did an album of classic French pop tunes, like,
Oh
in
boy.
French, and apparently flawlessly in French, but beautiful music that's recognizable, even though you think you may not recognize them. These are classic tunes. I would tell anybody to look them up. They actually produced a vinyl and gave people a limited time to be able to grab the album. I kind of like everything they're about. I have a huge spectrum of music that I love. So Brando, I know let's give you a chance to totally drag me through the mud on Pamplemousse and and the French album. I've set you up with so many beautiful things for you to just chew me up alive
I'm
on.
just so glad.
Go
I'm
ahead.
just so glad that either this album came out or you discovered it after we stopped living together.
You like my musical choices. Don't lie.
Your
Don't lie.
musical choices are tolerable, but not at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday.
You know what? It feels kind of like I'm giving you the same experience I had growing up with my dad, who was singing Sinatra on Saturdays at 7 a.m., driving me crazy. Sounds like the same effect.
Yeah, but that's better.
Well, for you,
In general.
you try anything that
In
month
general.
is
Yeah.
is rough, I think.
I,
No, it's good that we have those things. Any shows? I just dropped into the Mandalorian and got the episode 1 out and whatnot. I'm just trying to avoid. I'm ready for the end of the week, man. I'm ready to know and get busy moving on.
Oh, there's a show I want to talk about. You're gonna have to start giving
Lay it
money
on
to
me.
Apple, Charlie.
Oh no.
Jon Stewart is going to be back on TV on a program exclusive to Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, I know. I read about it, and I want to
Pretty
see
excited.
it. I can't lie to you.
Pretty.
I would be excited. That looks. I just think the man's voice is missing, if I can say that. Look, Trevor Noah has done a. He's, to me, he's kind of entered into his excellent phase over this last year or so. I wasn't too hooked on him, and now I think he's really just, his perspective and his way to bring humor to things is great. But still, Jon Stewart is, I feel like he's that conscience a lot of people are missing. Like it's just Stephen Colbert doesn't he's amazing too, but he doesn't really have that quality that I can't really put my finger on about Jon Stewart.
To go into the, to circle back to your weird French stuff, that's certain je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, he does though. He really does though. I mean, don't you miss his sort of moments where he would almost break the comedic host wall and go into this somber like moment where he would speak to everybody who was watching the show for a good he would do in 4 minutes what I don't see anybody having done well in 12 months.
You're 100% correct, and that's why I'm really looking forward to that show. I haven't really found anything else on TV or streaming services that's kind of really caught my eye. I finished up watching The Boys, which I'm sure we talked about on a previous episode. Um, I,
We did
I
a
thought
little bit.
about jumping into Lovecraft Country, but I just can't be bothered right now. I don't know, not a lot on TV
Yeah.
really intrigues me. I'm just trying to read a little more often.
Yeah, Lovecraft Country is one that I want to get into with Brooke. I watched a couple of episodes and it is creative off the charts and got me it piqued my interest. And then just finding time where we can both watch it together and usually we binge, so it's not something where we jump between episodes and whatnot. But definitely one I'm looking forward to. Uh, I did want to ask you about something because I know we were making a joke earlier about, you know, Alex Jones and whatnot. So, have you caught up with everything about Joe Rogan and him having Alex Jones on the podcast, and now that he's on Spotify and whatnot? I mean, literally, the funniest thing is that of all the craziness, he was talking about an old Evangelion, anime and trying to relate it to his conspiracy theories about
No,
Google.
that video I sent you guys. I hope you realize that was just cut together. That wasn't real. Okay,
Still,
okay.
it could have
wanted
been.
to make sure that I wanted to make sure you knew that was fake news. Anyways, back to Alex Jones. Globalist, interdimensional, psychic, vampires, pizza parlors.
That's
But
pretty great, actually, dude. That's pretty spot on.
But here's my take on Alex Jones and Joe Rogan. And I understand that those two go back a long way. They've known each other, I think, 20, 25 years. In the past, I've really enjoyed because, and just for all you viewers out there, I fully think Alex Jones is absolutely insane. I believe that what he portrays on InfoWars is more character than real. But the reason I like seeing him go on the Rogan show, the Joe Rogan Experience every now and then, is because it gives him a chance to get off his show, knock back a few drinks, and start getting real crazy and weird, which, in my opinion, is hilarious. I don't take what the man says seriously. I think of it as just comedy. And I believe his second
Yeah.
time on the show, when he had another one of Joe Rogan's friends named Eddie Bravo, just totally egging him on, is one of the funniest things I've ever listened to. And I don't believe Spotify has rehosted those particular episodes, so I had to seek them out and download them just to keep them for my own purposes.
Well, and I guess that was the controversy, right? Spotify had banned Alex Jones, and so they were, I guess the controversy was why would they not ban that episode or prevent Joe Rogan, et cetera, et cetera. I actually like the way they handled it. They came out and said it's, about the content and these things are reviewed. And I'm glad they drew a line between hosting a show, InfoWars or something like that, and having him be a guest on another show. And I don't think they can come after Joe Rogan. He's always got that bulletproof Teflon shield of I'm a comedian or I'm a meathead, and he's clearly not just a comedian or just a meathead, and he knows what he's doing. He knows how to stir the pot. It's high level trolling, I think, in a lot of ways, and also just kind of an expression of him making sure he could do whatever he wanted to do with his show, which is dope, but also nice to see he's got some control over his IP. Um, when you said something about Alex Jones, yeah, go ahead, Lola. I got something to say about Alex Jones in a sec, but go for it, man.
Well, and the thing about this most recent episode that caused some controversy. I mean, as soon as I saw the podcast drop with Alex Jones and Tim Dillon, oh yeah, this is gonna be nuts. I have to listen to this. And yeah, it
He's the
absolutely
ping
was,
pong
and I
ball.
like the
Yeah.
fact that a sober Joe Rogan spent a lot of time trying to calm him down and actually fact check some of his insane shit. That was,
Well, that's what I mean, right? He knows what he's doing. He's keen.
mhm. And
He doesn't need us to
Tim Dillon
polish his
just sitting
ass,
there
right?
saying, "Oh, I'm just like a kid in a candy store," was hilarious to me. And I love the fact that, and again, Tim.
Well, yeah.
Now, if I may say, Tim Dillon, for anyone that doesn't know, is, I don't want to say he's like a shock value comedian, but he does say some pretty outrageous things just to get a response from people. A lot of it tends to wind up being political. And when I threw on like the YouTube feed of this when I was at work, just started on my charging dock, got the AirPods in, deal, and I saw him wearing the free Ghislaine Maxwell shirt because he believes all women. Holy shit! Oh my god!
That is really hard not to laugh at.
It is. It is. It's really hard not to laugh at.
Well, and so do you? I mean, okay, cool. I got to ask you this though. Do you think that is that kind of comedy going away? Do you think as a result, or do you think it's here for good? I don't know. I mean, I've been laughing at that kind of comedy and shock. I guess it's shock comedy, but I mean, there's something funny. There's clearly it's funny, but it's I don't know if a lot of people separate the two, right? I'm really unsure if that's a I don't think anybody could say that's a genuine sentiment from him or that he's bashing. I think he's pointing out the loophole in all of it and trying to draw the laugh from it, and I don't know what else you could say about it. It's funny.
I think of comedy kind of like horror movies. They're really really good, and they make you enjoy them a little more when they make you feel a little bit uncomfortable.
I just think it's thought provoking. It's an incredible tool, right? I mean, it is one of the more revealing things that we do when we laugh genuinely. It's a tell, right? It's unlike any other conversation. And when you listen to enough of the kinds of actors or even comedians who act, it's the comedy that takes more awareness and that is more difficult and is more tedious to craft in a successful way than, say, a dramatic roles. I've never been in either, but from what I'm hearing and seeing from other people, I don't think it's hard to find those sentiments. It's hard to be. It's hard to bring that to have that awareness, man. And that whoever made the shirt, I wonder, did he make the shirt or is it just something that he found
I'm
and
sure he
wanted to
probably had
display?
it made. It didn't look very. It looked like it was something that was just thrown together with like an iron-on print.
Yeah, see, I think it's great as a comedy bit. I think it could also be really ugly if it were not. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Like, I could see if somebody were to make that as a real statement, you would get like bothered by it. But by itself as a joke from a comedian, it's pretty funny.
look at comedians like Bob Saget, or an even more extreme example, Jimmy Carr from the UK. They both say some extremely messed up things that are probably going to make you uncomfortable a little bit, but you're going to laugh.
Well, and I mean, hasn't that been Ricky Gervais and the last few stints on as an Oscar host? I mean, that's what he's done. He likes to take the air out of things, take the piss
Oh,
out,
it's not even
as it
it's not
were.
even that what like Jimmy Carr does, for example. He just says massively inappropriate things that wind up being absolutely hilarious. If you guys have never listened to any of his work, it's pretty easy to just jump into. I'd recommend giving it a shot. As a bonus, he has the world's weirdest laugh, where instead of laughing on the exhale, he laughs on the inhale. It's really weird.
That is really weird. No,
It's like that. That's what it sounds like.
we're gonna have to have segments of you doing impressions. It's too much. It's funny as hell. Think this is a good place to. We're in a good place. It feels good. I think I needed this chat too. You
We
know,
needed this chat and this White Claw. Ain't no love when you're drinking
Okay,
claw.
Karen. So, I think we've probably got one of the out of all the guests that I could have lined up for this whole next 15 episodes I have planned out. This is one I'm super excited about, and it feels like we're in this great headspace. I want to take a minute and kind of, it's somebody that we're both familiar with. Want to introduce somebody that was in my wedding, was a bridesmaid for my wife, hilariously in a great vest and tie, and looked great. Everybody had their own individuality. I'm not here to talk about my wedding, of course. Um, I'm really, really pleased to be able to welcome Rae. We're going to call last name Awesome. Uh, for a lot of reasons, really. I mean, I think that maybe people are starting to get that one of my themes in all this is it's unknown, maybe even ordinary, or would be not famous people, but extraordinary for a lot of different reasons. And Rae really fits that bill. Uh, Ray's been friends with my wife and I for a long time. Medical professional, currently pursuing a nurse practitioner degree in California. I mean, everything you could want in a good person. Honestly, smart, funny, easy to talk to. You know, and I have a lot of things to talk to them about. And Ray is also the first person I've been really close to that is transgender. And it is something that I have a lot of questions about and that I'm ready to be illuminated on. And I have such deep affection and our friendship goes back so long. It just seemed like a no brainer. I have questions about her time at UCSF and kind of the things that she's doing in her free time outside of pursuing that nurse practitioner degree. The obvious, right? How is it to be a medical professional in this year? What kind of obstacles and what are things that you're seeing and what are you aware of? And it's going to be a fun conversation. Brando and I we're both close friends with Rae, and we're glad to welcome them here to the show.
What's up, gang? This is Hoptimus. You've been listening to one of the great new podcasts from Ruminations Radio Network. If you want some more tasty sound vibes, come check out my new podcast, The Retro Futurist Culture, where we talk about alternate timelines, cyberpunk, anime, and other crazy worlds. If that does not strike your fancy, we have plenty of other great shows at ruminationsradionetwork.com.
Okay, and we are back. Welcome back, everybody. And it is my pleasure to welcome Rae Awesome to the podcast, our featured guest today. How you doing, Rae?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How are you all doing?
Awesome. I love the name Awesome. We're gonna keep killing that one. It's fun.
I've never been called Rae Awesome before, but I was into it.
Yeah. Listen, for
Yeah.
those listening, the Discord is usually if you do anything through Discord, it allows you uh the ability to kind of assign yourself a name, and in that name, Awesome was a great way to go. So it just fit. I thought we'd stick with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm into it. I've used that handle for a lot of things for quite a while now, so it's fun to see it become tangible, I guess, or out
Well,
loud. Hear it out
it's
loud.
gonna be a downloadable cast soon.
Whew.
Featured Rae Awesome. We love that. So I
Yeah.
kind of go ahead, please. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I was just gonna say congratulations, guys,
Oh,
on getting this going. Yeah.
let's hope we're doing an okay job. Little things like the rumble of the ice maker in the background with my wife getting ice is kind of one of those things I get like, I wonder how people are going to hear about that. But we're trying. We're trying to put together interesting stories. It's gone fun. It's been fun, and thank you. And it's just crazy. We don't know what to think about it. I'm so hesitant to be like, yeah, awesome, thanks. Like I'm
Yeah.
wanting. I'm worried. I always get a little tense. Like I hope we're doing
Hmm.
good. Hope we're
Yeah.
doing good. But look, I kind of already went through a brief intro of kind of who you are to me and
Oh.
to my wife and to Brando, and that we're friends and we go back. Obviously connected through Tucson. Um, how long have you been in California now?
It's been 9 years this month actually.
Wow.
Yeah. 9 years this month. Yeah.
How is it? I
So
mean,
that is wild to think about.
yeah, isn't it?
It,
That's a you
it,
don't really. I didn't reference that. 9 years. It's longer than I
mhm.
expected.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about it as I was getting ready to start this with you today because I was like, oh yeah, I really started getting close to Brooke and Charlie like right before I left, and that was 9 years ago now. So we've been friends probably for like 10 years.
Little over, actually. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, where were you in your career when you met Brooke? Because I know Brooke met you when she was an RN, and
Yeah.
did you guys work together at St. Joe's or was it at university?
No, it was
Was it
St. Joe's,
university?
and yeah, I guess you're right. It has been over 10 years then, because I met her my first year as a nurse, and that's been almost 12 years now in February. Yeah, we were working together in the ICU at St. Joseph's Hospital in Tucson. Yeah, on night shift.
Well,
So,
so and now you're pursuing nurse practitioner at
mm-hmm.
UC San Francisco, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. I sure am.
I
It,
mean, so I mean,
yeah.
look, clearly, I'm sort of in a bit of the low loop with being um, directly connected with another medical professional, somebody who's also really smart and cares about people and their job, and seeing the struggles of that person coming home after every shift. And I mean, it just kind of easy low hanging fruit in terms of what to talk about, right? Whether it's
Oh
having to
yeah.
wear a mask for 12 hours at a time. uh I know for me, every time I see anybody having to do it, like if I'm at the grocery store and the cashier is in front of me, I'll say, "Hey, thank you for doing
Mm,
that. I know that
yeah.
that's not fun." And I kind of recognize it because I see the maskne, and I see like
Yeah, that's real.
the irritation in general of just having to,
Uh-huh.
it's like her ripping off the mask. Like she you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like she pulls the
Yeah.
strings to pop them. When she gets in the car and I pick her up and she pops that off, I swear it's like the Incredible Hulk to me. It's like
It's
she's ready.
it's real. I mean, it's like I mean, honestly, I've seen the silly gif for well, not gif, I guess it's a meme, of like taking your bra off, like it's similar.
Oh,
And it really is. It's or I wear a binder and that's even a little more restrictive than a
I
bra.
wouldn't
And
have even I
the
wouldn't have even
mask is
thought to
really
ask that,
similar.
but it's totally true. But I
Oh
mean, look,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I've seen that bra pop off quick too.
Yeah.
Like just so ready to just chill.
Real similar feeling of like just chilling and finally being done with that, which is really uncomfortable.
So what
Um,
I have a question
yeah,
for you there about
yeah,
your work wise.
hmm
So obviously the year being what it is, 2020 nightmare and the pandy. We refer to the
yeah,
pandemic as the pandy. We're totally
yeah. I
stealing it
picked
from
up on that.
Canadian.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess here's where I was at. Did you start the like going towards nurse practitioner before the pandemic, or was that at the
Oh
same time
yeah.
or after? I don't know how long you've been in the program, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. No, we yeah, no. Prior to this, you and I really haven't had a chance to catch up much. No, I started applying for nurse practitioner programs. Um, when like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and then I got in. I started this program 2 Septembers ago, so in 2019. So I was in it for almost a full school year before the pandemic hit. It hit right at the end of our spring, right at the end of our winter quarter, start of our spring quarter.
That's
Um,
actually probably more convenient that it was quarters and not semesters, right? Because then you would have been right at the beginning of a semester instead of the end of a quarter, right?
Actually, totally logic that makes a lot of sense, but I think the way I said it was wrong. It started to hit right at the end of the quarter, but really the reality was it hit us at the beginning of
Oh,
our very spring quarter. It was like it impacted our final of our winter quarter. So our final was supposed to be proctored. It actually it's okay to swear?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Say what you want.
So it actually fucked up a lot of people finals for winter quarter. So it was March, and I remember trying to get a paper done and my study for my final and do all these things, and then a lot of things got the expectations got adjusted, and it became a little bit easier for a lot of us because that's when everything started shutting down and we couldn't go to school. And we were hoping that was just going to be temporary. It was like the last week of the quarter,
Oh, wow.
and then it wasn't temporary, and then our whole each quarter is 10 weeks, and so it came back like mid to end of March was when our last quarter started, and that was pretty difficult. It was pretty painful. Just all the
I can
professors,
imagine.
yeah, everyone was trying to figure out Zoom
Oh,
quickly and adjust everything. It was pretty rough.
has it pushed back your walk date? Like, has it pushed back the time you
Mm,
expect to
mm-mm.
grad further than the window that you guys were out?
No, thank goodness it didn't. And I'm really fortunate so far that I'm been able to make it work and get enough clinic hours and stuff. There are like two of my classmates now have decided to defer this year, so they won't be graduating with us, and it's
Oh, wow.
pretty sad. But um, for either because they couldn't get enough clinic hours, because a lot of clinical experiences got canceled or turned into like Zoom clinic where you're seeing patients on your computer. So
Wow.
you're learning how to see patients on your computer, which is hard. And then I
Yeah, I
think a
can
lot of
imagine.
people have, yeah, yeah. And then I think some people have been like impacted personally by the pandemic in ways that
Oh,
I think has
surely.
made it hard too. So some folks, their graduation dates will be pushed out. But the majority of us, you can choose to graduate at a later day if you need to take some time.
Right, they're giving you a little space for that.
Yeah, yeah,
That's good. Now,
yeah.
are you working at the same time in
Uh,
as a nurse?
yeah, I am working right now, pretty minimally. I honestly have like the chillest job right now that I've had as an RN. I mean, it's not chill. It's very difficult, but I'm placed
No, no, no.
at a
I take
spot
your
right now
point. I
that's
get what
helpful.
you're saying. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand. I mean, I'm sure every nurse that isn't directly rooted in the ICU has a bit of a I have a
Mm.
cushier job kind of thing, right? I mean, I think that they just kind of
Well,
clearly feel a bit relieved. I don't know if there's anything wrong with that.
I think it's all it depends on, I guess, on your perspective, and there's probably some nuance to it. But I think so my job right now, I work for the Department of Public Health in San Francisco, and I'm in the shelter health
Oh,
department or division. So I go to homeless
that's interesting.
shelters, yeah, and run like participate in and sometimes help run like nurse clinics. But currently I'm at a shelter where the volume isn't very high, and so it's just this health worker and I who I really enjoy working with, and just for like 3 to 4 hours on Thursday afternoons, we see patients, usually like 3 or 4 patients come in, and just listen to their lungs, chat with them, see what's going on. So that's been
That's
really nice. Yeah.
well, so I mean that kind of brings you to the question, right? I'm really interested in, I mean, not to obviously you can go anywhere and hear about who's responsible for what, but when you talk to people who are on the ground, as it were, like the best metaphor I've heard that made it easy for me to talk to family members and people here about people who might be reluctant to wear a mask or something.
Right.
I loved the reference to nurses and medical staff as like special forces, right? This guy was really smart. I forgot who it was exactly. Probably heard it on a podcast, but the metaphor was really great because I think that rests in the mind of a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't connect the two, that these are people that are specialists that you cannot replace with people off the street. And if they
Yeah.
are affected and overwhelmed and don't have the proper gear, and and that's sort of
Yeah.
how I hit my hard right leaning family and friends with a something to make them think, in a way, is I'm like,
Yeah.
if it were bulletproof vests, Kevlar, and ammunition, and we were talking about a battle, they would
Yeah.
intuitively be in an uproar if they didn't have the things that they needed, right?
Yeah.
They
Wow.
sort and they
So
would sort of perceive the stress like, oh, these guys are war torn or shell shocked, and they would think of PTSD, but they don't put it in the context of that, because they don't have I think they don't have a way to relate to what it is that, like, you and my wife and other medical
yeah.
professionals go through.
It's hard though, like hearing that makes sense in it, but it's hard to realize though that folks like for whatever reason, have a level of suspicion in them where they just don't just trust that that a group of folks could be asking for something because, they truly do need it in order to like survive and do their job safely. Um,
Well, and that's
you
it's
know,
funny because a couple of times now on previous episodes, I've really taken a moment to emphasize this very pragmatic view of why wear a mask. It's like, keep the hospitals and the staff from being overwhelmed, so that if somebody
yeah,
gets sick, they can go get treated. If we don't wear the mask, then we overwhelm and overcapacity, and then
yeah,
people get sick and they can't get treated, and that's a bad thing, and that's not a and the weirdest thing, Ray, is in Louisiana. I just totally think it says that I've learned a few things. The actual governor and the parish president, which is like counties,
hmm
they really had this great approach where right from the jump they were like, wear the mask.
mm,
It's not an issue. It's not a political thing. Wear the mask. And part of what I was saying in the lead up into this this segment, was, for me, I think that because we're under that, we're regularly in a position of a state of emergency because of catastrophic weather, that the
yeah,
community sort of doesn't, they kind of know intuitively, oh yeah, we all have to do our part, and nobody acts
mm,
like it's awesome, but they do it, right? They're like,
yeah,
okay, it's just, we got to do it. That's what they say. And we don't, they are very aware that hospitals have limitations because it's regularly a thing they have to contend with, right? And I was
hmm
comparing that to what Brando sees in Arizona, which doesn't have any cataclysmic kind of weather like that, and it allows for that. Like, I see more community where I'm at. I was really surprising to see how many people jumped on board, but uh, there's still those people here, right, that are suspicious and
yeah.
don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's great to hear though. Your perspective on that and your experience being in New Orleans. Um,
It
I
surprised me.
what was that?
It
Surprising?
surprised me. It did. It
Yeah,
surprised me. I mean,
yeah,
because it's almost a juxtaposition to some other issues that we won't go into. Like,
yeah,
it's a weird thing, but the way I make sense of it is through that sort of um that moment, and I see it represented fairly regularly and in different ways, and it sort of gives me hope, and I need that. I kind of want to hold
yeah,
on to those things, those representations of humanity, and it's nice to remind others of it too sometimes.
yeah. No, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it was surprising at first, but I think I read an article a long time ago that I think Rebecca Solnit maybe wrote, or I think there's been a few articles just about New Orleans and Katrina and people's ability to what feels like a natural ability to just come together and how that really got underreported, I think, when Katrina
Well, and
first
it's
hit.
because of those. I think it's because of those juxtapositions. Like, to use an extreme sort of metaphor, it's the kind of place where a person who you might totally see correctly as having racism is going to be out there helping people of color in a moment of crisis, but he's going to
Yeah.
go back to being who he was after everything's cleaned up.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of, and that's an extreme scenario. I'm not painting the people here as that. I'm just saying, like, that's sort of the mood that when it comes to a catastrophe, there's this sense of community built in. Like, they don't really want to, I don't get the sense that they're hoping for people to suffer, right? Like, I was telling
Yeah.
Brando that the hurricane we just went through, I had a
Oh.
moment where I, the eye of the storm, and we came out, and I mean, the whole neighborhood came out to check on this house that had a tree on it, and
Mm.
everybody was sort of without coordination. We all knew what we were doing. We were all out there trying to check on other neighbors. You okay? Do you have power? And you know, it was one of those things that I felt really good about. Brando's clearly putting his hand up over here. What's up, man? What,
No, I
jump
mean
in.
you guys hit it right on the head. We don't have any sort of disasters in southern Arizona that kind of bring us together as a community. So it's oddly enough, I'm envious of how your community deals with each other after a hurricane because I wish for some reason we could do the same thing around here. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I
Mm.
think there's not a reason for it to happen, but I think it's there.
Exactly.
Is kind of my point. Now, have you seen that with the fires at all, Ray? Anything like that? Like, I mean, does that
Well,
affect you at all? Or are you too far north from that?
I was just thinking about that with Brando's comment, because wildfires in Arizona are a thing. I mean, there might be like some
Yeah, there
some
was one
evidence
earlier
of
this
it, just maybe kind of removed.
The fires were never really close enough to me or
Mm.
anybody I really know to really have an
Hmm.
effect on our lives. Um,
Yeah.
I was prepared to have to get the heck out and go stay with a friend for a bit if they got any further south, but it didn't
Yeah.
happen, thankfully.
Yeah, my little sister, I've lost Tucson geography, so I've forgotten like where where she lives in Tucson, but close enough that when the fire was on Mount Lemon, there was like ash on their cars and stuff, and they had to pack up and almost evacuate at one point.
There
So I
was
think that's
a
why I was hearing about
there,
it a little more.
I mean there were a couple of mornings when I'd go to walk the dog and I smelled burning mesquite and yeah, it was just nothing I'd ever really
Yeah,
experienced before. It made me want
yeah.
barbecue and make me and that then I felt like kind of horrible for that, but
Oh my God.
I mean, that's
Well,
the first thing I associate that smell with. I'm
Yeah,
not used to
yeah,
my city
yeah,
being on fire.
yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a new experience for me.
For sure. Yeah, no, for
now have you?
sure. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead, please.
Oh, well, I was just starting to think about relating it to the Bay, I guess, and the fires. Because I've been here 9 years, but it's just in the last like 3 or 4 that I feel like the fires have hit as close as they have, or have been what they've become, at least in the time that I've lived here. And that change in smell, it's fucked up to think about. Like I think it was 3 years ago that I think it was 3 years ago that the fires devastated a lot of communities out here, and that was the first time I could remember just constantly like smelling that smell of like burning plastic and burning, like just so many things burning. And then you could smell it for like weeks. And then the fires happened this year, and you just got so used to it that it wasn't as shocking anymore. And that I'm just thinking about that right now and how that feels.
No,
Um,
I'm glad you're kind of touching on that though, because I was going to ask you something else, but it's sort of correlating.
mm,
So going back to your time that you do work every week, and even maybe because of the effects that it's been on your studies, do you see the effects of the pandemic of like having more of a community effort coming out? Like, do you witness that in your line of work or in your school? And then conversely, the other side of that coin that you just kind of touched on, do you think that there's a desensitization that's gone on, and that you sort of are you witnessing either one of those or not so much?
yeah, I mean, well, okay, so the second thing was like desensitization, and the first thing was like communal, like effort, like coming together.
Yeah, like, do you see the pandemic having an effect on the community being more
Oh yeah.
like in your area and just what you see in people?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I mean, I'm working minimally, but I am in clinic for school like 20 hours a week. So I'm
Right.
right now I'm in the ER at the county hospital
Oh,
in San
wow.
Francisco. And then I do some primary care at that hospital too. And and that's just been this quarter, but I've been there about 2 months, and that's been interesting to see because when the pandemic first hit, I wasn't working a ton and was mostly just doing class on Zoom and wasn't really out in the community a whole lot. Um, yeah, so let me think. So the pandemic, when I think of like when it first hit, I saw a lot of people coming together. My partner Violet lives with three housemates in a big house in West Oakland, and they in their neighborhood organized with other neighbors to put together. They were meeting like weekly or twice a week to put together like a lot of resources. They would go around their neighborhood and pass out flyers for like resources for folks. There's a lot of unhoused folks or folks experiencing homelessness that live like under the freeway right by their house and in that neighborhood. And so they put a lot of resources together just to
I like that,
meet
man.
people's needs, and
Nice.
I saw that all over the place. I've been seeing people. I feel like people that I used to organize with in the past, and people that it didn't surprise me much that they came together to put things together for folks and try to help people get some sense of stability in a really unstable time.
That's a beautiful
Um,
quality in people. I'm really glad you shared that. Sounds like
yeah.
your partner has probably got some beautiful quality to them as
Oh
well,
yeah. Yeah. No, she for sure
obviously.
does. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it makes me want to kind of go into, our connection is as friends, and obviously we all know each other from different parts. But I think the last time we were together was at the wedding, my wedding,
Yeah. Yeah.
with all of us were in the same space, enjoying the same spot,
Mm,
and you know, as much or as far as those groomsmen or people that you have up standing next to you are your closest friends, they're also kind of, in my opinion, representative of different pieces of you that you
mm,
sort of embrace. For Brando, I mean, part of the reason I had to partner up with him is because I don't know anybody that's better at telling me how ridiculous I am than he is, or taking me out at the knees at any given
mm,
point. I think he's got a gift there. He's also
It's the simple
got
joys in
this.
life.
You're good at it, and I think it's also the theme that kind of carries through all the people that we had up there is very well spoken, very intelligent, and kind. There is something
mm.
kind. And you and I, when we first met, I don't really know exactly. It felt like we became fast friends. Like the all the chemistry was right there.
Yeah.
And I was just immediately warmed to you. I like your calm confidence, and you seem so sweet, like just a pure heart. And I've always loved
Mm,
that in people, and I don't think you find it enough. Uh, but at that point, I don't think I've ever really connected. And I don't do that naturally. Like I know a lot of people immediately want to identify something in front of them. I don't really think I jump to that for whatever reason.
mm,
Part of the reason I wanted to have you on is because really you may be the one trans non-binary friend that I have
mm.
and that I know and I'm close to, and it just seemed like I wanted to have that discussion because I know it made me think, did I like it almost brought me to a place where I wondered if I had thought anything before at all. You
Mm.
know what I'm saying? Like I just kind of always just think of the person by name.
Yeah.
I don't really I go in that way. For like is that something that you knew when we were last together, or is that something that you've discovered? And like, I mean,
Mm.
help me get to that because I'd
Yeah.
love to know.
My um identity journey or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it right to say
Yeah.
discovery? I don't know if that's
Discover yeah, I think I think there's
revelation.
like no no right or wrong exactly. I think um for anyone. I think it's just such a personal thing, so they just kind of choose what word works for them. For
Right.
me, I would call it, I don't know what I would call it because I think it's something that well, let's see how, I
I mean, I don't
should
know if
have,
you have to. I don't know if you have to, right? I mean, let's just be fair. I
yeah,
don't know. I think it's okay to say I don't know.
yeah.
Totally acceptable. There's a pure quality to that.
I mean,
That's sort of Socratic.
I would call it a life experience of getting to the point where I can say, like, that's who I am. I can hear you say, this is my trans non binary friend. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. I've only been saying that for, like, out loud for about a year and a half. And I still, I mean, that's such a small amount of time. And so I still, when I do hear people say it out loud, I like just now, I was like, oh, yeah,
But
it still doesn't feel uh,
well,
totally.
I mean, I only would say that because of the context of the what we're
Oh,
doing
for
right
sure.
now, right? Like I've never. I don't think that's what I was kind of getting at and was laughing at when I was thinking about this. Was like, have I ever, if I've ever talked to anybody about you, I just
Mhm.
kind of say, oh, our friend Ray, and la la la, and I knew
You
them
don't
this, and
say our
uh,
our transgender non-binary friend Ray.
no, not every time.
Yeah, no, let's talk about sports or something
No, I
He's
related.
don't.
not lying
The
about it.
thing
I'd
is,
tell
I
you if
don't
he
say
was.
that about anybody,
Oh,
right?
for sure. I'm just giving him shit. Yeah, of course, Charlie. I know that's not how you introduced me.
No, but I mean, I'm just saying. I'm not saying like it within the last. Like we're talking about years ago. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said. I never described any of those descriptors in general about anything. I just sort of like it made me reference back. Did I ever like come out and try to describe somebody? Like if I were to go up and say, "Yeah, Brando's my straight heterosexual friend," you'll know him. He's that guy. I've never. I just didn't think in those terms, right? In general. And so it almost felt weird to even say that, but it's something I want to bring awareness to myself on. And if I can make a really poor attempt at the way I thought about this initially, at least to describe it, it was like I feel like that's about identity,
Mm,
and for me personally, the way I relate to that is I had a lot of issues and separation with my father,
mm,
and I'm a junior. I know this is a jump, so please forgive me my rudimentary basicness about this, but for a long time, it meant a huge amount to me because uh, that person was not somebody that was thought of fondly for multiple reasons. And
mm,
that distance there, and also me being a junior, I had a lot of turmoil about what it said about me personally. Like, I thought I was gonna just because I was a junior and because I'm this guy's son, I was gonna become this guy in a way. Like that was my fears when I was a little boy. And for a long time I wanted to change my name and I wanted to get away from that and I couldn't.
mm,
It only came after a certain point where I kept the name because I've realized that for me personally I was redefining what that meant as my identity, right? Like it didn't mean those things. And I felt like I claimed that in a way. Like I claimed that even though I'm a junior, I still
mhm,
claimed that for myself. And that's the closest I could get to trying to identify anything close to what it might mean to, like you said, I don't know if it's discovery or awareness, and I know it's probably subjective. And in that context, I was like, I remember that moment for me personally about getting away from being and my family was very much like, that's not to drag them through the mud, but there was a lot of that sort of association, right? Like I would be as a 6-year old or an 8-year old come into the room and immediately these topics of my father would pop up, and that sort of felt like labeled onto me. Oh, he's that guy's son. Oh, he's the, and I think that
mhm.
carries on in some people's minds. So um again, that was the best for me personally that I could relate to having some pursuit and search of what my own identity was. And I don't know how close that, or not at all. I mean, like I said, I know I'm completely unaware. I mean, does that seem
Um,
the best I could do to relate to what I might be wondering, right? And I wanted to see if that was so far off, or how would you kind of help me or help anybody understand what it is that gave you that clarity? Because I think it's
Oh yeah.
courageous and like amazing, a big moment, right? You know who you are.
Yeah, it's I think yeah, I think identity and sense of identity in all of us is incredibly important and personal, and it's when it comes to myself and my gender and finally expressing it in a way that I have been both afraid and just felt like I couldn't for so long. It does feel I think it feels good. I think I'm still figuring out what it feels like, but 'cause I'm gonna be 35 in a couple months, and I remember as early as like 3 or 4, I think 4 probably, like just really, that age when you just feel when you last feel comfortable, I feel like
Wow.
just feel comfortable being who you want to be and wearing what you want to wear and playing with the toys that you want to play with. And that's when I last remember feeling comfortable.
And there's no expectations, right? There's no
It, yeah,
perceivable any expectation on you as anything other than a
yeah,
kid.
right up until I mean, I think it's pretty brief because I think especially with gender, depending on who's around you and how informed your family is, which mine tried. But I think initially, there was it was like a little girl really, really wanted to be a boy, and I said it. I my cousins had like I have these clear memories of my one cousin Monica like telling me that she was gonna grow up and be an inventor and invent a gun that she could shoot me with, and I would turn into a boy. And so it was like these conversations we would
That's
have.
Wow,
awesome,
that took a
though.
really dark turn for a moment. I'm glad it came around.
From what?
It just seemed to take
Yeah,
a real
we,
dark turn there for a moment, but
I
I'm
think when
glad
he
it came
heard
around for a
invented a
positive
gun, he
thing.
didn't know where it was gonna go.
Oh yeah, no, it was good. It was positive. It was a positive gun. The word gun I felt weird about saying, but it was like a ray gun, like a.
No pun intended.
Oh my God, yeah, a
Ha
ray gun.
ha!
Wow, Charles.
Boom. Da-da-da.
Dun dun. Yeah. So, anyways, I think yeah, I think yeah, I think when I was a young kid, I definitely felt comfortable in that, and then as I started to get older, started feeling incredibly uncomfortable and super aware of how much I wanted to be liked and accepted, and so I
Wow.
think that definitely started to bury my comfort with exploring who I was, and definitely started like a many years of trying to fit what I thought people would want me to be, and just feeling terrified of straying from that. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, so it wasn't until I think I was like 32, or I was
Full grown adult,
full
fully
grown
cooked.
adult, fully cooked. Okay, wait, let me back this up a little bit. When I was 30, I started dating again because my long-term relationship had ended, and I started dating again. And was on dating apps, and that was the first time that I put my pronouns being they, them. And the first time that I put that my name was Rae and not Ray Lynn, which my full name is
Right.
Ray Lynn. And so that was my flirting with. I was like, okay, well, I'm on my own. I can do this, I think, because I'm in the Bay Area, especially, and I'm seeing a lot of other people do it too. So, so I did that, and that felt really good. And then I started, dating and meeting people who just accepted that that was who I was. And then I met my partner, Violet, while I just a couple months old, had been really starting to go by they them, only in the dating world, and with not even with like close friends, just just on dating apps where I was just getting used to that. So Violet was my first person I met when I was 31, and she only referred to me as they, them, and then introduced me that way too. And so that was great,
Man,
but yeah, it was great.
getting points. Violet's getting points. I like
Violet,
her already.
Violet gets a lot of points. She's lots of points for
Special.
Violet.
Yeah, so far
Yeah,
sounds pretty
no,
special.
Are you saying
she's
that because
great.
because she's standing right there?
I'm not.
Yeah.
She's not.
Blink once if you're safe. No, I mean, so I got a total tangent here because
Yeah,
of the way you described that period of time where you were really uncomfortable and really worried about what others were thinking or what they expected and you wanted to be like. Do I? What is your thoughts about people that are, let's just say, in that spot, whether that's adolescent or young
mm,
20s, in the age of social media? Like,
yeah,
in because you're at that that benchmark age where there was a time before social media was
yeah,
this organism, right? And I
yeah,
mean, there's a lot of material out there that you can find on the impact of social media on any type of young mind.
yeah.
What I mean, do you can you imagine that? Definitely would have been more uh, a pressure cooker, maybe, or do you think it would have been better,
Pressure cooker.
easier
Like,
to find
can you
community?
explain? Oh, yeah. So I would say not even I would say this all started like the negative feelings, like at like 7 or 8. And so I think even and I think 7 or 8 year olds are like pretty plugged in now. So
And kids
that's
can
kind
be cruel, right? I mean, that's a lot of
yeah,
some of that study is
yeah,
the book title leaves me, but they do have that statement out there now. It's pretty common knowledge that it affects kids because it never, like, that harassment doesn't just stay at school, right?
yeah.
It's 24/7.
I think I'm hoping it can flip both ways though, because I remember. I mean, I do think it can increase the meanness of kids and the violence, the kids can
Right.
perpetuate onto each other, put onto each other. But I think it also, I think back to what you said, like about community. I mean, I think that that's real. And I think about like, myself, I grew up in Southern Arizona and also Montana in the summers, as my
Mhm.
parents had dual custody. And so I felt super alone. I realized I was queer, I knew I was gay when I was like 13 and had like no in-person community or internet community really. I was trying to find it because I was online all the time, but I instead just really dove into like shows, like Buffy, and dove
Right.
pretty full on into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and
We have other friends, like Graham was into Buffy big time.
oh,
Mr. Graham
Graham,
Shaw.
really? I
Yeah,
would
I'm
he's
love
pretty
gonna
to
sure
be a
talk to
guest
Graham was
Graham.
too.
just into Sarah Michelle Gellar. Let's be honest.
No, no, no. Look, I know he talks that way, but I'm telling you, he is a straight up fan. He has watched the entire series catalog through multiple times. He is not just into Sarah Michelle Gellar.
I'll
I
have to
promise
catch up
you.
with Graham
You're right. He
sometime.
was into
Yeah.
Eliza Dushku as well, and for that, I really don't blame
Oh,
him.
okay, okay, calm down.
I was very much into Eliza Dushku.
And I
Yeah,
could
I
I'm
trust
have
it.
her.
still am. Let's be fair, we still are.
Yeah.
I have her tattooed on my arm, actually.
What?
Man, OG. Way
Yeah.
to go, Ray.
So don't know how that's sounding out of context, but I
Hey,
promise it's not
she's your
weird.
Roy Orbison for a,
Well,
a Bobby
as
Boucher reference.
wait, what did you say?
I said she's your Roy Orbison from Coach Klein from Waterboy. It was just a bad reference. Go ahead.
There's no bad reference because there's probably somebody that got it, and
Hope
I
so.
I did not, but I'm sure there's someone that's laughing really hard
It's
right
even
now.
funnier, actually. So perfect.
Oh, I mean, I got the tattoo is of face, so it's not just like Eliza Dushku's headshot. It's like a comic book illustration
Still
for a bit.
cool. Still really cool.
Anyways, kind of forgot what I was saying initially. Oh, I think nowadays I think that there is community that can be found, and I think that there are kids out there and young people who um have access, to a computer or their smartphone or something, and are seeking that community out. And I can see a benefit of the internet when
And
it
they're
comes
trying to
to.
find the people like Violet in the world that are setting up outreach and community like epicenters that have that motivation. I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's some folks looking for. Yeah, yeah.
I think it's
I
good.
think
No,
so.
I think that was that's kind of what I was looking for there. Part of what I wanted, a lot of the, I guess what I hope listeners are getting attuned to is, there's a ton of things about you I find interesting, and this was the one that certainly I wanted to get to, but it's not what I wanted to start with, right? Because I just
Yeah,
didn't feel like that's not really what I think is. It's not, doesn't say everything, right? It says
yeah,
a very important thing.
yeah,
Um, and I had mentioned to you on the phone before that, I have seen and heard comments and talked to people around me that um I'm not gonna bash as anything other than just poorly informed or uh ignorant, to the kindest way of saying that word, to the best of its quality. But I have heard some stuff that just makes me surprised at how some people see the issue in
yeah,
general. And I think the one most recent was somebody that is I'm fairly close to, is very kind, and I think his sentiment was really one of, oh, it's, I don't get it, and it's just, I think it's just to get attention, or something to that point. And I did go through talking to them about it, but I was surprised at that reaction, right? And it just made me
yeah,
feel like, man, the first thing I thought of was, you're watching way too much TV. Like, maybe it's just a show that, or something that
hmm,
that's the only impression. I don't know. I didn't really get to that point in the conversation, but I wanted to present this sort of this idea that that's so ridiculous, that that it's such a, just the way that you have described your own experience and your own coming to terms with it, and sort of just lightly referencing being uncomfortable, which I'm sure you could talk in volumes about, and manifest it
yeah,
in numerous ways. I A lot of that effort was meant to, you know bring a totally normal human example and say, Please listen. This
yeah,
person, interesting, clearly not, yeah, I don't know what
yeah.
it was, you know, uh, that's just what I saw around me. I don't know what you
Yeah,
would say to that person.
I have quite a few things I think that came that came to mind. I've also Charlie, I've had like conversation quite a few times with that person. Not that I don't know who your specific person is, but
No,
but
no, no. That's, yeah.
I
I
can
got
think
you.
of three different people. I can think of a coworker I worked with for quite a while, the receptionist at my physical therapy place, and then a really, really close friend of mine. All three people who identify as liberals, or whatever, you know, but
Yeah.
fairly like liberal in thinking and progressive, who each separately told me accounts of where they encountered had an interaction with somebody who said that they were non-binary and used they them pronouns, and they each described that encounter in that situation and the person as just seeking attention. um and
I've
with
heard it. Yeah, a lot from different people, and I don't know what that, you know what I mean? I don't know what that stereotype comes from.
so I'll tell you like my thoughts of it, because I think this is pretty important. I've been thinking about it quite a bit because as I said, I'm almost 35, and I only came out in the last couple of years, and it took so long to get to this point. partly because I knew that that's what people thought, and it
Wow.
I
Yeah.
it's like such a real deep, strong fear of people not just gonna write you off, or it's such a strong sentiment that I don't think people understand when they just say, "Oh, that person wants attention." Like
It's
they're
dismissive.
creating a it's dismissive and it creates a lot of damage because then you yourself, like as the person experiencing it, spend a lot of your life disbelieving it and pushing it down because it doesn't feel that it's not accepted. You don't want to be someone that's just seeking attention, and so you try to convince yourself that that's not what it is. At least my own personal experience with it, I think, without there are many years, like I said, age 8 to 30 of just 22 years maybe of just thinking of not knowing who I really am, feeling like I'm not allowed to access it because I'm going to be a burden on other people.
No, I totally think it it seems like lazy thinking off the cuff. Secondly, it feels like totally using a pun. It feels like an effort to make it binary in terms of
Hmm.
good, bad, evil, good, right, wrong, or something like that.
It's an interesting
And
choice of words too,
yeah,
binary,
thank you,
like
thank you.
what we're
I figured
talking
out.
about. Yeah.
But I do think that there's that sort of group think, and I also think it's dramatically lacking in giving somebody individuality. Like it's one dismissive comment that seems to make it where it can't possibly be subjective, that
Yeah.
that one person they may or may not have actually had direct and experience with, and that was somehow negative. It just seems like this effort to group that whole thing into one bubble and then
Yeah.
dismiss it as a whole, and that's a special kind of rejection, right? That's robotic.
So
Yeah.
I got some thoughts on this if I want to jump in here for a moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, Brandy. Yeah, please.
So
Sorry, I missed the hand.
yeah, respect the hand.
Oh.
So unlike Charlie, right? I am a drone in corporate America. I have two transgender people at work. One I'd say is an acquaintance. The other I'm going to call a good friend.
Yeah.
My good friend came out to us. Pretty much my entire little team. We went into a conference room and had some sort of meeting about this with the person.
Mm.
We're all and of course as I'm walking over there with my coworkers, I'm thinking, oh god, what the hell happened here? Somebody must have fucked up bad. Who's getting fired? Because I had no
Mm.
idea what this conversation was going to be about. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little weird for this day and age, because as far as I'm concerned, if what you identify as and what you find yourself attracted to are at least human, cool. You
Yeah,
do you.
yeah.
I'm not going to
As
ask.
long as it's human, we're
The only
good.
thing I'm going to ask is that you cut me some slack for a week while I get used to the different pronoun. And that's it. Because to me, it doesn't need to be a big thing. You tell me, hey, this is what I feel like. This is how I'd like you to refer to me. You got it. Not a problem.
Well,
In fact, maybe
Brando,
you'll
you're sort of
appreciate
right.
this
Yeah.
is my 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 non-binary friend at work. They are of Hispanic descent. We of course have Latina, Latinx, Latino, Latina, and Latinx. I have gotten permission to call them Wanitex. It's a very nice nickname. They're quite a big fan of it. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, you got emeritus status apparently.
I got emeritus status, yes. But see,
Well,
when it comes to, and to kind of finish my thought here, because yeah, I'm totally cool with that, but maybe I've just been to some weird parts of the internet during the pandemic because I'm single, I live alone, and I have no life. But
Mm.
maybe I think it's the people that identify as what could be considered a weird thing that kind of ruin it for people like Ray or people like my friend Juan.
Are you talking about like what is it, the
Elvenkin?
Right,
Wait, what?
like
yeah.
There are communities of people who think they are everything from energy this and that to elves or descendants of some mystical creatures. That's what he's saying makes him uncomfortable. And I would say that anybody who's insane tends to make me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
Oh, but guys, that's a whole other podcast I think we're gonna have to have.
you're on. I was just trying to make a funny. I seriously wasn't putting that with you. I was really just trying to kind of wrap up with some sort of a giggle bow.
Because if someone comes up to me and says, I identify as, I don't know, wolfkin. It's like, okay, that's fine. You do you. I'm gonna have some preconceived notions now, but that's fine. But like I said, when my friend Juan or my other acquaintance comes up to me and we have that conversation, cool.
Yeah.
You do you. I'm happy you feel comfortable enough. To do this.
Well, Brando, I think the two things I wanted to say though is the meeting that you had with your co-worker, was that by their request?
Yes.
Or was that okay? Yeah. So, well, I think that's brave, man, and says that they trust at least you guys as a group and know that you work closely together. I think that was, that's fair.
And I agree, but as far as I'm concerned, that literally could have been a 20-second conversation.
Well, you're
and for me, there's no reason why it shouldn't be something just that simple. I guess that's what annoys me about the whole thing.
Yeah, we're talking about the same thing. The people that would have it be a big deal are the same ones that are trying to group as and being dismissive about it being an attention-seeking campaign of some sort. I think I agree. I don't understand it either. But I think that's just it's helpful for me to have a friend that can come on and sort of clearly represent anything I might have to say about it better than I could say it.
I have some responses to some of that.
Please throw it on there, man. I want that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brando, I think you bring up like a few things for me. Like, totally, it should be simple, and you find it annoying, and that's fair. Unfortunately, it just isn't for people. It's just not simple, and I think it's like
and to be specific, that's what bothers me about it. Is it just can't be a simple thing for all of us. I just want to make sure that part was perfectly clear.
Oh no, that's totally clear to me. What I think is important. Oh no, I love you and you're great. But what I think is important to point out though is that like I think it's oversimplifying it to say that it's the folks. I don't know the name of what you just said, but that are believe that they're other creatures or energy or whatever. Like I think it's oversimplifying to say that that's what causes people to not take non-binary folks serious or people that come out as trans to call them attention seeking, because I think it's just more insidious than that, and I think it's actually more violent than that. I
see where it totally makes sense. I see where you're coming from. I don't believe I hear I completely see what you're saying there. I think with Brando, what he was giving an example of, the way I understood it, was more of the line of he thinks within the trans issue, it shouldn't be a big deal in the community or for any person with any humanity. And I think when he was talking about the energy creatures, that to him feels more like that is they are mocking it themselves. Like they are taking that and making a mockery because they're out there acting as if it's one thing, like a reality.
Well, I think that there are I think there are some people that maybe are intentionally mocking it, but I think that there are other folks out there that like for them they believe that they are that or that energy, or they believe I think this is important to bring up because so I had mentioned the coworker of mine who I used to work with when I was an ER nurse, that he was one of the 3 people who had told me about someone that they felt like they were just trying to seek attention. And the context of it was a psych patient that was being seen in the ER who had some psych diagnoses, and they were on a hold, and they were yelling that they wanted to be called they. And this coworker pulled me aside because I had just come out to him as non-binary, sort of during lunch. This was a while ago. He was one of the sorry, side note, one of the first people I had come out to, just because it just came out of me while we were eating, and wouldn't have been who I thought I would come out to in the beginning. So it's kind of
Right.
funny how that works. But so because I had come out to him, he pulled me aside one day during work and said, "Hey, Rae, I had this experience. I think this person was just looking for attention because, they're crazy. And I just want to know what you thought about it." And I was like, "Call them they. It's what they're asking you for. It doesn't matter what else is going on." And I think when we were just chatting right now, and I don't think you, Brando, or anyone said anything wrong. It just made me think of what I think is a really important point that feels connected, is that
No, it does.
we think if someone has something else going on, we see that as them seeking attention too. I mean, that's why I kind of made a joke that we'd need another podcast, because I was thinking just about like mental health and how we see mental health and how
I would like to do it.
Oh,
a lot of
absolutely.
I don't know if it would be with me, but I just mean it just brings up like
Oh, I'd love to have you there. No,
I,
no, you're well spoken on it. I like
I
it. I like it.
I think it's important because I think especially when it comes to trans stuff and queer stuff, it gets lumped in with mental health stuff. It all gets seen as attention seeking together,
No, I
and
get
I
it.
think
I think I
yeah,
get what I think I understand what you're saying there, because
yeah,
it's like it takes one person who might otherwise have other issues psychiatrically that have nothing to do with how they identify. And so the minute that somebody associates those two, they can be what we were talking about before. It allows them to be dismissive as, oh, that's just another part of what they're struggling through, and it's not. They don't see that as just being. They don't separate the two. They associate them.
right. And that kind of makes me think, and this is like another tangent, but a lot of folks experiencing like mental health, emergencies and mental health issues, like especially if they're identifying as trans, like it's something I'm really interested in like bringing more attention to, and just thinking about more and having more conversations about, is like what it means to grow up trans in this world, and to not be seen, to spend your life like shoving that down, and to not be validated in who you are as a person. It creates very real problems as an adult that you're going to face with depression and anxiety and suicidality and all of those things.
Well,
And
you're
so
indicted to those things, right? I mean, you're
yeah,
not, and without any, almost as if just a mechanism. You get, I can see that
yeah.
just in terms of struggle, that level of struggle.
So for that even more, I think like it's really important that we try to like part of why I wanted to do this podcast with y'all is this. I hope like some folks could just be listening and just see, oh, okay, maybe I should just receive what someone's telling me and think about it before I react, or like kind of make an assumption about what they're after, you know.
Get to know the person first, worry about the rest later. I mean, get to know the
Yeah.
person, and I think that's all it takes. And I wanted the same thing. I'm so glad you agreed to come
Yeah.
on and talk about it. And I think it's a good place to sort of maybe start. That's a good close off, I think, to talking about it. I think you wrapped it up really well.
Mm.
I don't want to move on and let you go too quickly though, because there's something I want to bring an awareness to as well, that I don't want to miss an opportunity to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you know, you're right now, you're taking time to take care of your dad,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
it's something that I was saying to you. I want to bring some awareness to what he's struggling with, if you're comfortable. If not, we can totally not have this as a part of it, and we can edit it out. We're not live, we're recording. So but I did want to bring some awareness to aphasia. I know somebody that I am close to here with Brooke, who's a friend
Mm.
of ours, who's dealing with aphasia as well. And I think it's one of those things that really people don't know about it.
Hmm.
So I didn't know if you felt comfortable. If not, then I can minute mark this. We'll move on, and I'll wrap up, and we'll have our lovelies and call it a day.
Oh yeah. No, that's why that's why I was totally open to talking about it. That's why I had
Okay.
mentioned it on the Discord thing. Yeah.
Perfect. I just wanted to be sure. So your dad has aphasia. You're taking
Mhm.
care of it. You're going to do a better job of describing what that is and sort of what you see it manifesting as. I mean, if you could help us understand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so my dad just turned 56 2 days ago. It was his birthday. Two
Wow.
days ago. And
Happy birthday.
yeah, we'll tell him you said that. Also, side note, he's the Chicago Bears are playing the Saints right now, and I know
I
the
know.
Saints are your team and the Bears are
Uh-huh.
his team, and we share a wall, and right when we start the game is playing like right now. And right
Yeah.
when we started this podcast, I could hear him shouting like
Brooke
so
is
loud.
watching the game too, so I can hear a lot of the same things.
And
I
I was
can
just like,
totally hear it.
I was like, at what point during this podcast could I tell Charlie that it's
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 actually
so
perfect.
so funny. I did not mean to pick this time during this game and had no idea that your team was going to be playing our team.
I, for one, am glad
So.
you picked this time.
I'm sure you are, Glenda.
This is one of the few times I'll say it, but go Bears.
From a Vikings fan. Ouch.
Oh, the Packers almost won that game.
They almost did.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Brenda. Yeah.
I've
Oh
cut them out
man.
of my life for right now because I don't need any more anxiety and depression for 2020. So we'll come around next year and I'll start paying attention again.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, at least they had today.
Well, good for your dad. I'm glad he's enjoying the game.
Yeah.
55 is so young, man. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
he was yeah, and I think he was actually 54 when he had the stroke. Yeah. So it was a couple Februaries ago, almost 3 years ago now. And yeah, he it's kind of it's
so he
honestly
was
like
diagnosed post-stroke.
so he was diagnosed, and this story I'll try to say very quickly, but it connects to kind of what we were saying about mental health and stuff. But he
Sure.
yeah, he was being seen by he was in a behavioral health center of the hospital for a separate issue and was about to be discharged and had the stroke. And the folks discharging him, he couldn't talk and they couldn't sign his name. He could just say a couple words that didn't really make sense. They
Okay.
just discharged him, put him in a
Wow.
cab and sent him to my aunt's house. And I tried reaching him because we had been talking while he was in the hospital and couldn't get a hold of him. And the next day, I tried calling him again, and my aunt answered, and I could hear him yelling in the background, and he just kept saying, "Who? Who?" It was like all he could say. And I was like, "Oh shit, something's wrong." And my aunt, she thought that he was just like over medicated. She's like, "They sent him to me like this." And long story short, like
Oh,
after talking to her a little more, I was like, I think something's really wrong and we gotta call 911. And eventually like got 911, got the ambulance to come. They had to like strap him down because he fought them because he had no idea what was going on. And they took him to the ER. This was all in Montana. And then I got a call from the provider there, who told me that he had had a huge stroke, an ischemic stroke, meaning that there was like a clot that blocked blood flow to his brain. And so I like flew out there the next day and saw him in the hospital and was like, "Hey, what happened?" And that started. So I got the hospital to start investigating it, and then got access to his medical records. And long story short, like found that a pretty big mistake was made, and we hired a lawyer, and through a couple hearings, like found that it was assumed, I think, that he was faking his symptoms so that he could stay. And that was part of the justification for discharging him. If they
oh my
had
goodness.
recognized what was going on, which to anyone in the medical field, I think felt pretty obvious that it was a stroke, then that it is a possibility that he could have received a treatment that would have lessened his symptoms quite a bit and increased his healing um,
I'm
ability.
sorry
So
to
he
hear.
didn't get that. Yeah, it's okay. We worked through it and fought it, and were able to get a settlement, and I was able to move him out here. But yeah, I think, but yeah,
I mean,
but going back to what was that?
I think it speaks. I bring it up because I know what I have a lot of respect for um, that effort to care for another person that's close to you. For me, my one of my greatest memories of my stepfather, my dad,
Mm,
is when my mother and I were in a terrible car accident and she broke several vertebrae in her back, and as opposed to the other vertebrae in her body. And she and my dad was just stand up guy, right? Like he just
mm,
never flinched. And the effort, amount of care it took, and all the implied stuff's there: surgeries, back brace, immobility.
mm.
I've always been that registers very high on character, and I just think it's another amazing quality you've got. And I thought it was a good thing to bring attention to aphasia. So he's lost his which it's not just speech and communication it
Yeah,
affects
yeah.
it's
So let's get into that. And I just have I think for me, I'm never. It's funny because you made the joke about Brevity Box, and I know you, Charlie, and I know
exactly.
we've been chatting for over an hour. And I
Yeah,
think
I know.
Brevity
but
doesn't like the guest.
it's kind of me too though. Like I find I'm like, I know the question you're asking, but there's other information that I feel like is important. And so I've never been good at cutting. I've just never wanted to cut that other information out. But yeah,
I'm
so
glad it's perfect.
aphasia with my dad. So he's got expressive and receptive. And before I ran into this with him, I even as a nurse, I think I really hadn't thought about it much and just thought aphasia just meant people couldn't talk. And
Right.
for him, especially in the beginning, so this was in February. I went out there and stayed with him a couple of days and visited him in the hospital. It was right before the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And he's a big, like I said, he's a big Bears fan. He's a huge football fan, like just football, watches so
Yeah.
much
Love
football.
it.
Yeah, and so he could hardly talk. He could only say, it was kind of funny, he could only say his sister's name, Tracy, when he was talking about anyone or anything. It was just like Tracy was like one of the 5 words he could say. um and he couldn't, it was just hard, and he was really frustrated, and that was hard to see, and he couldn't read and he couldn't really write, and this was the immediate first couple days. And he just looked so frustrated, and was also frustrated because I think he was trying to say what had happened at the behavioral health unit. He was, trying to explain, and you could see that he was so angry, and he just could not explain it.
What a
Um,
prison. That's it.
but
Crazy.
absolutely, it is a prison, I think. And but I mentioned the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl was on, and it was Tom Brady's team. I think it was the Patriots, and
Yeah.
he was so clued into it. I remember watching him. We watched the Super Bowl together, and I think our cousin Nadine was with us, and we were watching him watch it, and he's like standing staring at the TV, and he's like able to say a couple words, like he's following it for sure, and then he says something like Tom Brady is a dick, like he says that he's such a dick. And I was like, what?
Accurate.
I love it.
It was just so good. And so that I thought was really interesting because I think he's progressed so much, but when it comes to like football, when it comes to certain video games, like he could play Halo because he had played it so much before. He was able to pick that back up pretty quick. So things that he had spent so much time doing, I think, and maybe just had like laid down like cemented pathways in his brain, he was able to clue into easier than other stuff. And we've done a lot of speech therapy, and he got to stay for almost 2 years. He was at this ranch for folks with brain injuries and stroke. And it wasn't really around other people with aphasia though as much. He was kind of the aphasia guy there. But when he came out here, so he's been here since the summer, since June, and I just got him connected to one of our neighbors is in speech therapy school, and she got us connected to a program through her university. So he does speech therapy on Zoom, and they do like exercise classes and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I think that's honestly it's perfect for what I wanted to kind of address, and I'll tell you what my motivation was.
Yeah.
When I totally going to talk about Brooke here,
Yeah.
my wife, Brooke. You know, her dad
Yeah.
had ALS, and when he was in hospice care, or when he was, you know, one of the things that I think is such a touchstone for the level of care that Brooke provides as a nurse is that as a kid she saw people who are medical professionals because of his uh, suffering from ALS. You know, it affected his speech and his ability to communicate, and I think that she just could give
Mm.
multiple examples of people speaking to this person as if they were mentally deficient,
Mm.
as if they were lacking of the ability to understand. And that says a lot about their own awareness of the disease itself and what it affects. And that really bothered her. And she would stand up to them as a
Mm.
kid. Right. And so I think that at its core, like even just that perfect example of, and I know those are different um, ailments that manifest in similar ways. I want to make sure
Yeah.
that I'm not trying to say they're the same thing in any way or diminish either one, but they do affect speech and communication. And I was, I just, you know, I think that's a great example that you know, it's clear he's tuned into the game. Football's not a easy sport,
Yeah.
right? The Tom Brady is a dick is a complicated algorithm to get to that conclusion, and he's
No, it's
right.
pretty simple. Tom Brady's a dick.
Tom Brady's a dick. But I wanted to bring some awareness
Yeah.
to that because I think
Yeah.
that ultimately we're saying that that's not, you know, I'm glad he's got you. I'm glad he's in speech therapy. I'm glad that he's dealing well with it. And I think that a lot of people don't know about it. And I hope if they hear the podcast that if they do come
Yeah.
across it, they'll be more of the person we hope that doesn't make an assumption
Well,
and will, you
yeah.
know,
Well, one thing that I think just on that, I know that we're probably cutting short for time, but to speak more to what I think you're saying, like he is so aware of how people treat him, and is very much will just be like, I'm not a kid, and he'll have moments where he'll have he has this reading volunteer on Fridays that he reads with on Zoom. And the very first time he did it, I was at my clinic rotation in the ER, and I got a text from him, and he said, "I'm fucking stupid." And I was like, "What?" And I called him, and I was like, "Dad." And he's like, I know, but I just can't do it. It's so hard. And I was like, you're not stupid. You're
no,
so smart, and you'll
it's
get
just
it
an
back.
obstacle.
And
It's just an obstacle.
yeah,
It's not a signifier of intellect. No, I
yeah,
think that that's a that's exactly what I wanted to get to is
yeah.
that, you know, if I don't think people know what it is, and I think it hopefully will help them recognize it. And I also think it's just good of you to talk about it. I appreciate you sharing all that with us.
Yeah, no, we constantly have, like, we'll be out in the world, and people will just start talking to him, and he'll just look blank, and they'll be like, "What? I just said blah blah blah." And then I've been having to learn how to receive that and be like, "No, he has a disability," or like, "Dad, do you
Well,
care that I'm telling people
right.
this?" Like,
Well,
yeah,
because you don't want. I think the thing you want to avoid is people being condescending to
yeah,
that. To
yeah,
that's the hard thing to kind of just like you just need people to be a little more aware sometimes, and people, and I'm guilty of being impatient with all kinds of people. So
Mhm.
I speak from experience, and plus I'm married to somebody who is very quick to tell me where I'm making mistakes
Yeah.
all of the time. Rae,
Yeah.
I think this is a good place to wrap it up. I think it's been amazing. I really can't thank you enough. I feel like we've covered a lot of what I wanted to cover, and I've really enjoyed talking
Good.
to you.
I'm glad. I'm glad we got it done, and I really appreciated you reaching out. And it's so nice to chat with you both. Um, yeah, I miss that. I always think fondly of that time in New Orleans for your wedding, and
From what I
Well,
we'll
can
come back
remember, it
before
was a
we
pretty
leave,
fun week.
man. Come
it
back
was
before we leave. Hopefully the pandy will we're not gonna go there, but hopefully we'll be able to wrap that up at some point, put it behind us, and get back to where we can visit each other easily.
come visit you for your going away party.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Well, we love you, Rae, and thank
yeah,
you so much for doing it. I really can't I can't say more. I think it was a great a, a great thing. I'm really glad you shared so much. I couldn't have asked
yeah.
for better.
Well,
Maybe from Brando.
sorry. um, no, I appreciate you making the space. And also please give Brooke a big hug for me. I love you both, and Brando, I love you,
Love
and
you too, right?
and
Well,
enjoy
stay here
sharing the
for a
space with you
second
guys.
while I do my corny sign off and thank everybody for listening. Thank my one listener, maybe.
Such a corny
But
sign off.
Do
it is
you
a
have
corny.
one listener at least?
I do have more than one,
He
but
counts
Yeah.
I'm
me.
not sure how many of them aren't my
I'm the one
friends, right?
listener.
I don't know if there's one like actual stranger, but hopefully we'll get that person soon. We want to keep putting out content, but
One,
yeah, look,
soon to be 1 million. Yeah.
friends, subscriber, multiple, hopefully. Really hope you've enjoyed the content today. We thank you for joining us again. We want you to keep it up, like and subscribe and all that jazz. Thanks for listening to Brevity Box, guys. We'll see you again on the next episode.
We know you've been scared watching horror movies by yourself. Well, now you don't have to. Hang out with Ruminations of Red Rum, all things horror from movies to the latest spooky games we've played. Come hang out. But hurry, the killer's behind you!